You're watching Let the Quran Speak. Now we're looking at another verse from part of our Misunderstood Quranic Verses series. This is from chapter 18, verse 86. And the question is, does the Quran say that the sun sets in a pool of mud? We'll be looking at that now. Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
So the question about this verse, Dr. Shabir, is whether it's a scientific error or not. How could the sun set into a pool of mud, right? So let's look at the verse. The verse says, until when he reached the setting of the sun, he found it setting in a muddy spring. This is one translation. I'm sure there are others. But what does that mean, Dr. Shabir?
Yeah. So it's interesting, Sophia, that when we look at this passage, actually, instead of trying to find fault with it from a scientific point of view, we should see how this is an improvement over the Syriac legend of Alexander that we spoke about in a previous discussion. Now, in the previous in the pre-Quranic story, the sun indeed sets in a fetid water in a spring, and this is a poisonous sort of water, such that if people fall into it, they would be disintegrated. The Quranic narrative says that they're asking you about Dhul Qarnayn. Say, I will give you a narrative about him. So that means, from the way I explained last time, I'm going to tell you a narrative the way it should be told. You want to hear a good story about Dhul Qarnayn? Okay, I'm going to tell you a good story. Inna makanna lahu fil ard. We have caused him to be established within the land. وَأَتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. And we have granted him a means from everything. Now, how is this reflected in the pre-Quranic narrative? In the pre-Quranic narrative, in the legend of Jacob of Serog, it is said that he has like courses to follow through the sky, so that he can go from the place of the setting of the sun to the place of the rising of the sun by following this path. And it is almost like what we might describe today as a kind of a wormhole, like where, you start at one point, you get to the other point very, very quickly. It's almost like an exit door from one part of the universe getting into the entrance to the other part of the universe, right? But the Quran does not have this kind of detail. From the way the Quran is telling the story, it is possible to understand that Dhul Qarnayn travels in a natural way until he reaches sunset, basically. The term Maghrib al-Shams, Maghrib could mean either the place where the sun sets or the time when the sun sets. So, because the Arabic word is like this. This is a type of Arabic word. Like if we say, we join the meme to the three-letter word. And that could be a meme that indicates the place or the time of the action being performed, the action of the verb. So the action of the verb, gharaba, which means to set. So maghrib is the time of the setting or the place of the setting. Just like today, we say salatul maghrib, the salat of the time of the setting of the sun, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, maghrib could be Morocco. That's where, the far west where the sun sets. That's how people thought about it. That's probably why they named it Maghrib, right? Where the sun sets. So the westernmost part of the African
continent at the time.
Yes,
yes. As they understood it. Yeah.
Yes. Dhul Qarnayn reached the time of sunset, or even if you say the place of the sunset is the place where people go to see the sunset, right? It's almost like today somebody says you want to see a good sunrise, go to the Far East, right? You're going to be the first to see the sun rising. So that's all it needs. It's not a scientific error, to put it this way. Now, the Quranic narrative continues to say, فَوَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِيَةٍ. So he found it setting in let's say a muddy spring. So the critics say, but that means the Quran is saying pre-scientifically that the Quran set in a muddy spring. No, but the Quran is not saying factually that the sun set in a muddy spring. The Quran is saying he found it to be setting It's like if you visit another city and somebody asks us, okay, you visit that city, how did you find it? They're not asking like about the navigation, how did you get there? They're asking, what was your impression of that city, right?
So it's about his perception.
His perception of it, right? Even if one were to say, okay, let's link it to the pre-Quranic story. So what does the pre-Quranic story say? Okay, he's set in a fetid water. But then that would be the Quran relating what is there in the pre-Quranic story. Again, it wouldn't be a scientific error because remember from the beginning, the Quran is talking about this conversation between the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his interlocutors. They want to know not the fact of history. The Quran is not starting these stories by saying in such and such a year, in such and such a place, there lived a man named Dhul Qarnayn. The Quran is not starting from that historical narrative point of view. It's starting from the storytelling point of view. In the case of Moses, not long before this, and we were discussing this in verse 65 and just prior to that, it's called a Musa when Moses said. So it's really like it's jumping into the middle of a story. In the story, when Moses said, so here too, in the story, this is what is being described, Dhul Qarnayn. But instead of going into all of these details about the sun setting in the fetid water, the Quran is putting it in such a way that we can now interpret it in a scientific manner to say, well, okay, he saw it. If from his point of view, it looked like it was setting in the muddy spring, but it's not in fact so. Just like we speak of sunrise and sunset is not in fact so. And coming back to the legend said that if anyone went into that water, they would disintegrate. So the Quranic narrative says that God said to Dhul Qarnayn about the people that he found there, إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. Either you're going to punish them or you're going to take a path of kindness towards them. Now, the Quran does not say how he decided to punish them. He only said, أَمَّا مَنْ ظَلَمَ فَسَوْفَ فَنُعَذِّبُهُ ثُمَّ يُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ فَيُعَذِّبُهُ عَذَابًا نُكْرًا. If, as for those who do wrong, we are going to punish them, and then they are going to be returned to their Lord, after which they're going to face even an exemplary punishment. But the Quranic narrative does not say that he threw them into the fetid water. Though in the pre-Quranic narrative, that's exactly what he does, right? So that means there is a legendary body of water in the pre-Quranic narrative. But in the Quranic narrative, there is a body of water, but it's not legendary. It's not the body of water that, this eats up human flesh upon contact. So you can see that the Quran actually steers clear of scientific errors. And it retells the previously known stories in a way that brings out the theology, the moral, and the ethics of the Quranic worldview. And at the same time, it avoids the errors and the exaggerations and mythical and legendary elements that were there in the pre-Quranic story, just bringing us back to think about a figure, and this is how he behaves as a model for a believer in our present time. So Dhul Qarnayn is a model. He, in the end, says, هَذَا مِنْ فَضْلِ رَبِّي. Whatever graces he has gotten, this is by the grace of God, he declares, and that's how we should relate towards God and give thanks to him for his blessings.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised a third of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiya and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.